set up real quick. Okay. So I think I'm live, and I don't know if anyone's here, and that's perfectly fine. I will be able to communicate, even if people do come. So I was just setting up the link to this live stream on Twitter, and then I sent that out, and now here I am. What I am going to be working on today is a new lead that came in over the weekend. And the first thing I want to do is I want to find out what their search results pages look like. And I also want to find out how well their website, their current website, is performing, and maybe dial into some opportunities for improvement along the way. And so the first thing I want to do is I want to search for them. I have searched for them in incognito mode on my wife's phone, so I don't think that I'll have any search history connected to this initial search, but so we'll just see what happens. But the company is called Mercer Dance Hall, and they used to be called Mercer Street Warehouse out in Dripping Springs. And so I'm putting in the initial first branded word into the search console, Mercer, and you see none of the recommendations are popping up. And so there's nothing really interesting there to see or do that would inform me, a potential visitor, hey, I want to come dance in at your place tonight or tomorrow, or what's happening, right? So the next word would be dance. Okay, so now we have Mercer Dance Hall. And so that auto-populated, so that's great. Now again, I don't know if my search history is impacting this initial search result or not, so I'm going to be doing a couple other things to try and break the machine to see if it's pulling through as it should. But if I didn't know it was called Mercer Dance Hall, I wouldn't get this auto population, right? I would still be getting all of these other things. Now, if I knew that there used to be a place called Mercer Street Warehouse, and I was trying to find it. Okay, so now they pop through as Mercer Street Dance Hall, and that's good. That's a really great result. But again, I had to know street or dance in order for the auto population to provide me the autofill choice. Okay, so really what we want is when somebody types in Mercer, we want to be one of those very first pieces of the puzzle. Okay, and so that's where the search engine optimization is going to come into play later with schema, making sure that their Google My Business page is fully updated and content on their website incorporates the term Mercer as much as reasonably possible and humanly interestingly possible, right? So it's not too bad. Anyway, let us go to their website now. Mercer Dance Hall. Let's just verify that we're going to the right place. And we see Mercer Dance Hall, and it populates, with mercerdancehall.com. So let's go there. Okay, a couple things that pop up to me when I very first see this are, one, I've got white text over a light background. So from an accessibility perspective, if somebody coming visually with a visual impairment, either maybe blind or maybe they just have an impairment that makes seeing things difficult. Contrast between text and background is a big problem for many visually impaired people, and so I find this problematic. Not only the white text on the light background here in the hero, but also that initial button is light gray with the white text on that button. And so that's all problematic. These happen to have high contrast currently, but it's my guess that as I change the dimensions of my viewport, I will be moving those into different positions, and so the background won't be the same. Okay, so I'm going to just go here into responsive so I can draw it across. And one, you can see how the button disappears in calendar or whatever that word is supposed to be is difficult to see. And so I'm just going to draw it out larger. Okay, so see, we've popped up over there with those icons, and they're still scaling right on top of that frame of that picture, it looks like. So that's lucky for them, but everything else is proving quite problematic. Okay, so my initial thoughts are, yikes, we need to dial in the accessibility just straight out of the gate for the website. Easiest thing that we could do is put a filter over this hero image that is dark and that will provide sufficient contrast for the white. And then we also need to change the button from light gray to a much darker, higher contrasting color if we want to keep the white consistent. So then scrolling down, we see we've got an embedded calendar, which is great. That shows us, the thumbnails, and we can hover over those pieces and we can see what's happening and get a little bit more information. That pulls through nicely. We can seamlessly move from 1 month to the next without issue, so that's good. This text contrasts real well, so it does not look like an accessibility issue, but it is on top of gray, and the calendar kind of disappears into the gray, and so that is kind of problematic because it doesn't separate itself very nicely visually. So we might want to do something with the user experience there. And then we've got an image, but that image isn't doing anything except probably slowing the page load speed down. So we need to make sure that while that image is probably important because this is the interior of the dance hall. So that when you get, when you're thinking about going, you're like, oh, wow, yeah, this is nice. I want to go dance there. We also have it doing something, performing some kind of function on the website so that it's got a reason to exist. Okay. And we go to that good contrast dark gray background, but again, it's kind of boring, it's kind of dull. It doesn't really separate pieces of the landing page, of the home page in this case, from everything else. It's made with Squarespace, yuck. Just personal opinion. And the contact information actually has their emails attached, and from a security perspective, they are probably getting hammered with lots and lots of spam as a result of having their emails front and present. So best practice is pull the emails and just have contact forms like they have here. Now see, there is good contrast, black. Maybe it's a little too black, but black with white text, and that pops, right? You can see the difference right there. It's an easy. Okay, so that's the home page. The calendar we just saw when we scrolled down, so it's taking us to a completely separate page in the website. And so let's see, it looks exactly the same as that portion from the home page, but then it goes into more detail, and probably this information is what pulls through, the same. We get the time, we get the address, we get the happy hour information, how much it costs to go in, that sort of thing. And so we get more or less the same content there. Okay, so it's not very interesting. It doesn't really clearly separate itself, and it's very, very repetitive. So there's probably a better way of laying this content out to where the repetition is less in your face and more just if there's something unusual or outstanding about a particular piece of content. Instead of $10 entry, it's $40 entry. That's unusual and quote unquote interesting, like somebody needs to know that, then that would be highlighted. Okay, so not a lot going for it as far as user experience. Okay, and then table reservations. This is more integral for somebody who's trying to plan a visit and they want to reserve an entire table. You can see as I start scrolling, the menu overlay is problematic until it disappears and reappears later when I suppose I start scrolling up. Yeah. So here we have some kind of embedded, probably iframe that is using the reservation strategy. So this needs to be pulled out and identified. It's powered by Squarespace. So if we're moving them to the likes of WordPress, we need to be able to find a similar plugin or feature that will allow for this same kind of functionality. And then the content, it's the same, layout, content on the left, and then whatever happens on the right. While that is good in one sense, it's consistent, it's also kind of mind-numbingly boring. And what ends up happening in my experience is somebody comes over here and then they stop seeing this content because it just looks the same, even if it's completely different. So if we just did a swapsy, threw this over there and that over there, that little simple shift might be enough for me to actually pay attention to the content and read it. And also, I'm analyzing the website, so I'm not really engaging with the website like a normal visitor might anyway. So there's that to consider. And there's more information. The hours all in the footer, so that's all the same as before. More content pages, private events, same kind of layout. if you want to rent a cabin. So they apparently rent cabins, and so this Book Now feature is tied to Airbnb, so that's easy enough to replicate if we do pivot away from Squarespace. But the layout is okay. And so we've got, these little sliders, which, are telling us about the different cabins so we can see the inside. There might be a better way of providing that, content, those assets, more stimulating, more engaging, that sort of thing. But it's functional. And then they have some kind of e-commerce. They're selling merch, okay? And so you can buy merchandise. Again, Squarespace is an unusual place to be selling merchandise, I think. But it's very simple merchandise, not lots of options. So there's that. Contact page. No surprises. Oh, there is a little surprise. There's an unnecessary image on the contact page of, I suppose that's Elvis. And then the facts page, frequently asked questions. This is good. This will help if it's built well. And I assume with Squarespace, they integrated the schema accordingly. So this should help pull in people through search results who are asking these same kinds of questions about similar locations in the area. But they don't look, very thorough. They're not branded. And so in some ways that's good, and in other ways that's not so good. So that's my initial take on their website. And then next thing I would do is open up an incognito browser and go back to their website. And this time we're going to run some Lighthouse metrics to see how it stacks up. And I like to put this little dashboard over on the side when I'm running Lighthouse. And I'm going to change how you look. And then I'm looking first and foremost for the mobile device because I want to know the mobile core web vitals. This has just rolled out as far as a ranking factor in Google. The desktop core web vitals are coming, but they're not yet a factor, so we'll run both. Now, Lighthouse metrics, I run them many times because it's just an emulator and it's not exact. I try to find the highest performance numbers that I can get. If it can get that high once, then it might be able to meet that number consistently if we just touch it up. So 53, the first run, is not surprising. It's Squarespace, and those have sometimes been in the single digits. So that it's in the 50s, I think that's actually quite good for Squarespace. It may even be in the 60s this next run, so we'll see how well it performs. Okay, a 50 this time. That actually went down. And again, these metrics, they shift. I run them on my own sites, and something that scores a Lighthouse perfect 100 across the board one time may end up the next time scoring something in the low 90s. It's kind of confusing. It's a black box to me. I don't understand how it works. I just run the reports a couple times, and then I try to take an average. And right now I'm focusing on the performance, but we'll also talk about the other metrics as soon as this last report finishes running. And so we're at a pretty consistent 50. The first time we ran it, though, it was a 53. So I'm going to take a screenshot of that 53, and that's the one that I will use to report to the client with. It's the best that it did when I ran multiple attempts, and so that's the one that I want to say, look, okay, this is as good as you can do. And if we can make improvements, then that's, we want to measure our improvements from this point. Okay, so just adding these metrics, and I typically just call it the name of the website, and then I make sure that I note it as a lighthouse score, and then I just do the numbers 53, 87, 93, and 90, and then today's date is June the 8th, 21. So that goes into my little folder for my leads, and that's the one that I'll use to report back to them with. Okay, so a couple things. The SEO. Not being a Squarespace user, I'm unsure as to what they should expect from Squarespace, but with all of the tools that are available and the importance that search engine optimization has just in general across the board with all of our search engines, it should never be below a 90. Well, it should never be below 100, but a 98 we might have to take on the chin if we're doing one thing that might negatively impact the search engine optimization, right? So 98 and above, call it, is best, really ideal. Anything below that, there's no excuse. So that can be improved probably really easily, not necessarily through Squarespace. This might be at its capacity. But it might be something that could be dialed in on Squarespace in and of itself and improve straight up to 100. The clients may not be aware of those opportunities within Squarespace, and so that might be an easy fix. Best practices. So let's look at the search engine optimization. So it doesn't have a meta description. That's doable within Squarespace for sure. This one, tap targets are not sized appropriately. That means that they're really small and someone's thumb could overlap and accidentally tap the icon next to it, right? And so these are those social icons. We can probably change those from within Squarespace itself. If we can't, then maybe we can add some kind of alley or grid or space between them to separate them just a little bit more. So best practices. This issue, when you open a link in a new browser, okay, for security purposes, you must add rel no opener or rel no referrer. And with either one of these, then the security vulnerability is taken care of. And again, this is a black box to me. All I can tell you is that this is a security issue. Okay, yeah, there you have it. Security vulnerabilities, right? Adding either rel no opener or rel no referrer means that they bad actors, whoever they might be, can't grab that link and do something within that link before it opens that new page. Okay, so it's a vulnerability that has been identified, and there's a very, very simple solution. We just need to adhere to that solution. Don't know if this is something we can do in Squarespace, but it's a pretty common issue. So I assume that there are measures that can be taken from within the Squarespace platform without pivoting. And so then that takes us to accessibility. And that was one of the very first things that I said when I got here was accessible problems, right? And so we have background and foreground colors do not have sufficient contrast ratio. We're not at all surprised to see that, right? And then we have some issues with navigation. We have some issues with names and labels, okay? And we have some issues with areas. Usually if we have an image that is a link, we need to add an area label. And so we can dial in and find out what that is. It's to do with the calendar. So we need to go, is it problematic with the calendar in and of itself, or is there something that we can do to improve the accessibility? Most of these things look like they can be fixed probably from within Squarespace without moving. And then we get into performance, and this thing probably can't be fixed. Speed index might be related to a shared server, so they could get on a faster server. Largest contentful paint, the LCP may be improved if they got on a faster server a little bit, but this time to interactive thing, that means that someone on a 3G or is it 4G, I don't know what they're emulating, would have to wait 11 seconds before they could start interacting with the website. That's terrible, right? Nobody's going to wait 11 seconds, especially if they don't even know what the place is. They're going to have to be dedicated, very, very already in the funnel. They're going to need to be somewhere below interest into consideration in order to expect them to wait 11 seconds for the website to load. Total blocking time, that's quite high, but the cumulative layout shift, the CLS, that's good. It should be 0, but you know, anything green is good enough, right? So we'll take that as a win, a small victory. These other things, this is primarily to do with this image there, the size of the images, probably lots of unnecessary JavaScript, right? Properly sized images, I just said that. And then unused CSS, and we're not enforcing HTTPS on some of these things, it looks like, so that might be slowing things down. There's lots of little things that can be done, but most of the big stuff is probably tied into Squarespace itself. And so that would be my initial SEO audit for the website, and for the where it's at. I haven't even gone into, you know, its keyword content strategy or anything like that, but there's not a lot of content, right? Mercer Dance Hall is pretty much the only thing that appears to be showing up that says Mercer, right? So there's Mercer Dance Hall, Mercer Dance Hall. These aren't even active links. There's Mercer Dance Hall in the footer. You know, the emails have Mercer in them, but boy, there's just not a lot of content that is harnessing the term Mercer that would help Google think, you know what, this dance hall is probably what somebody's looking for in this area at 6 p.m. at night when they start typing in Mercer, when they've clearly indicated that they're looking for something to do. Okay, so that's really the big deal. We've got Mercer Dance Hall in there once, that's good, but it's our brand, so we need to be more focused about brand, and we can do that by telling stories, probably in the content. So yeah, that's my initial analysis. Let me know your thoughts. What did I miss? That's what I would like to know more than anything. What did I miss out? What opportunities did you see watching that I should consider when I'm building my proposal for this client? I would love to know. And yeah, that's it. Thanks a lot. Hope you enjoyed it.